Hey guys, I am going to do this as a recorded video instead of a live, even though I already did it as a Facebook Live, because it turns out Facebook decided to only record half of the video from the live, and that is very annoying. So here I am, and thank you guys for watching this video or watching it again if you're getting it the second time around, because it's a really important message I really want to share. I think it's a topic that is it's certainly hard for me to talk about. I hemmed and hawed over what I wanted to say for the better half of today and most of the week, actually. And it's because some of the things I'm going to say about myself might seem a little harsh or perhaps judgmental about myself, but it's just the truth. And also, they might feel that way about you. It might feel like I'm attacking you or criticizing you or whatever you're doing, but that's not actually what I'm doing. So I'm going to do a Friday Facebook Live, hopefully, with people who are total experts that I really care about. And I really want to share it with you guys, my friends and family, so that you can hear about, first of all, what I do all day, and also hear about the people that I help, and also hear from the people who help people just like you with their health or their lives or things like that. I just can't wait to share my friends with you. I'm going to kick off this series of Facebook Lives today with a not live video right here and tell you a little story about myself. So I wrote a blog on this topic earlier this week, which is on my Facebook wall. You can scroll down and read it. It's called, actually, I don't even remember now what the title is, but it's about putting on 5 pounds. And it's really about the myths and misconceptions that I myself, as a healthcare provider and health coach who is quite into just being calm and not stressed most of the time, even have fallen prey to myself and have made me stressed out. And what I wanted to talk today about was one aspect of that, which is making food the enemy and blaming food for many of my health problems, or the savior from my health problems. And I think that I went through my own journey here, and I've been up and down on food in this whole health journey I've been through, as you guys really know about it a lot. So I was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago. And before that, I was diagnosed with Candida esophagitis, which we think is related based on a lot of my immune system was exhausted trying to fight off cancer. And I had a lot of inflammation in my body from cancer. A lot of inflammation, and I had insulin resistance, and Candida tends to propagate in people who have some blood sugar problems, which I did. So that came first, at least it came first in my mind and my doctor's minds in what we were aware was going on. And I had Candida esophagitis. I had a biopsy to prove that. And it hurt to swallow. I had this itching in my chest all day long that I couldn't scratch, and it was burning, and I had pain in my upper back and just really uncomfortable. And I saw a gastroenterologist who'd done the biopsy, and she put me on antifungal medication for Candida, and it didn't help. And so I hired my own health coach, Jessica, and I remember Jessica saying, well, you need to eliminate all of the foods in the world, pretty much. And I remember thinking that was the craziest thing ever. And it took me a couple of days to get on board with that. And then I saw a functional medicine doctor who confirmed the same thing. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm on board. And, as someone who is an athlete and likes to go all in, I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in on this. And so I had to eliminate gluten and dairy and soy and all sources of sugar and artificial foods and processed foods and coffee and alcohol and chocolate and all of the things that I was eating every day, which meant that I not only had to completely reinvent my lifestyle around it because there was nothing I could do that was quick to grab, but I also had to reinvent my mindset around food. And like I said, I was all in. So I tried to do that overnight, and it was really hard to do, but I did it. And I did it. And it turned out that, you know what, eliminating those foods was one thing that was really, really helpful, or at least that's what I'm telling myself. And I did feel better from the Candida. I also still had to be on several more rounds of antifungals. What then came up was with cancer. When I was diagnosed with cancer, which was about 3 months later, it was my understanding at the time, and it still is my understanding, that you don't want to feed cancer a lot of sugar and artificial foods and things like that, because that can make tumors grow. And my goal was to make the tumors shrink. So as you guys know, I started quite the Instagram, Facebook campaign of hashtags. We had Take That Candida and Take That Benedict. Like I said, I was all in. I mean, I was posting all about the nutrition and the diet I was on and all those types of things. And I'd go out to dinner with my friends and they'd be like, okay, what can you eat? People were really, really respectful of it. It was great. Just kind of started to define who I was. And I, was like, oh, I'm never going back. I don't want cancer to come back. And I certainly don't want candida to come back. So I was all in and super bought in that this was going to be the thing that saved my life, was sort of diet, nutrition, which is what got me into health coaching in the first place. But, as I moved forward, foreshadowing, I kind of realized maybe it wasn't just that. And, Daniel and I went to New Zealand about 1.5 years ago. And of course, while I was there, I was like, oh, well, it's vacation. I'm going to make exceptions. And at the time, it was really hard for me to do that. I was like, oh, I'm going to cheat, or I'm going to have some gluten. I'm going to have some dairy. I'm going to have some alcohol, because in New Zealand, you've got to drink the wine. It's delicious. I had a New Zealand ginger crunches all the time. They were delicious. We went to Fiji. I had lobster rolls, like all sorts of things. Like, I wasn't going to miss out on those things, but I was like, oh, but this is only for vacation, right? And, as it turns out, eating those things didn't seem to affect my health at all. Or at least I thought while I was on the trip. When we got back from the trip, it could have, I was exhausted for several weeks, probably the jet lag, probably all of we hiked something like 8 to 10 miles a day. I mean, it was a really active trip. But I didn't think about those things at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, it was the food I ate. I blamed the food. It's like, it's totally all that food I ate in New Zealand that's making me not feel well. And the alcohol, definitely the alcohol, which I still kind of believe. I don't tolerate alcohol very well. I have to have it in small quantities. But I was very quick to judge and very quick to blame food. And what that meant was I got really strict with my diet again. Because I was afraid. I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't if I don't eat right and take the right supplements and all those types of things, I'm going to get sick. Cancer is going to come back. Candida is going to come back. And it's really interesting because I went to such great lengths to get my diet together that it would always, I don't want to say I was stressed out about it, but it was work in order to meal plan and meal prep. And, you go to a restaurant and you have to read the menu 12 times over to see what you're going to eat or what you're going to combine from different menu items in order to give yourself something that meets all the rules. And that was exhausting. And I always felt this guilt, if I ate something that wasn't on the strict diet. And I was always kind of looking and seeing how it would affect me. And 3 months into that diet, once we got back from New Zealand, I wasn't any less exhausted than I was when we first got back. I still couldn't quite exercise and train for Swim Across America the way I wanted to. My hair was falling out still. My periods were super wonky. You guys hear me talk about periods all the time. And 6 months later, I ended up with another round of Candida esophagitis. And that time I remember walking to the doctor and being like, really, dude? I mean, I'm doing the diet, I'm doing the supplements, but I feel no better. And I remember again thinking, gosh, maybe it was that one piece of gluten-free bread I had, or maybe it was maybe there was extra sugar in that ice cream I ate, that dairy-free ice cream I ate, right? Or maybe the couple of pieces of feta cheese I didn't pick out of the Greek salad. There has to be a reason in my diet that the Candida came back. And to be honest with you, whether it's something that I read or something doctors told me, or, very well-meaning people told me, there were plenty of things around me that reinforced that idea and made me believe that. You can go Google causes of Candida and find them, right? And there's plenty of websites that I myself read that were like, oh yeah, if you eat a piece of cheese, it's going to flare your Candida up overnight, which isn't actually really true. So what this resulted in was all the time, again, a lot of fear and a lot of blame around food for me. And I would kind of recognize that and ignore it. And I'm for the last 4 years been really surrendering and letting go of fear and stress, and it just doesn't really define my life anymore. But when it came to diet, it felt so safe to be eating this way and be prescribing myself to eat this way, because I was certainly afraid of health problems coming back. But when the candida came back again, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take several steps back here and really reevaluate and actually own up to this fear and own up to the lie that I was telling myself, that I had total control over whether candida or cancer came back with nutrition, total control with nutrition. Um, I say this all the time to my own clients, and I've been saying this for years, even to myself, that no amount of diet and supplements can wash away fear. And I think sometimes we over diet and over supplement, not in order to lose weight. That's never been an issue for me, but actually gaining weight is an issue for me. But I think we overdo it because we're just afraid. And if we just acknowledge that fear, sometimes we don't have to overdo it and spend so much money on nutrition and so much time on those and being so strict. And, if you've ever heard of the phrase rest and digest, that's when our calming part of our nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, is kicking in. And if we're stressed out about food, we're certainly not going to digest the food. And that's what can lead to food sensitivities. And that's what can lead to all sorts of digestive problems and candida problems and microbiome problems and things like that. When we're stressed out, our blood sugar stays elevated. And so when our blood sugar stays elevated, maybe that's what was leading to, part of the problem. We also don't metabolize our nutrients well, so we're tired. So all of that to say, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do a little experiment and allow myself to break the rules and, give myself a chance to see how much letting go of fear around food and all this needing to control contributes to my health. I had a hunch that was it. I listened to my intuition, which I meditate in a journal every day. And I was like, I think that I really need to listen to this. So I had a hunch that I was unintentionally adding fuel to the fire rather than putting it out. And that I wasn't getting enough nutrients because I was restricting so many categories of food. And that, when we're afraid of food and we're restricting and we're stressed out around food, that, by any other definition, is disordered eating. And that may sound really harsh if you're someone who's restricting food or you're on an elimination diet or something like that. So I'm not saying that that's you. I'm saying that's what was going on for me. And it's the absolute truth for me. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm here telling you, publicly that while I was doing something clean and healthy to treat and prevent certain diseases, that it was also a disordered way of going about it. I think it's possible to eat healthy and eat clean without fear and do it out of love for our bodies rather out of fear for getting sick or not getting better or something like that. So I'm not advocating that you eat or drink in ways that contribute to increased health problems, but if you know me, you probably know that I used to be super perfectionist, high achiever, go-getter. Maybe you still think I'm that way, but I'm much on the other end of it, recovering. But that doesn't mean that on occasion I can't slip back into those habits where it's really extreme to be, where I'm kind of extreme about rule following. And, when we become afraid of anything, it becomes almost like a compulsion. So for me, it was disordered eating. And I was like, well, that's not really how I want to live. That's not how I live with anything else these days. So we're going to let go of that. So I decided that, you know what? I'm going to surrender the fear and give it up. I'm done with this. Like, we're not doing that anymore. It's not healthy. It doesn't feel good. And I certainly am still getting sick. So clearly it's not helping. So for me, I didn't just suddenly say, screw it and start eating, all of the things all of the time, but I just gave myself permission to listen to what my body was telling me and what it was asking for. And this is what that looked like literally tapping into my intuition every day and listening to what my body asked for. I ate peaches for 3 weeks straight, peach crisp, peach cobbler, peach and smoothies, straight up peaches. I live in Georgia. I mean, we have a lot of them here. So that was totally, I mean, amazing. I started having cocktails again, and in small quantities. I realized I needed to keep it pretty small by listening to my body, and I was fine. I allowed myself to have gluten-free grains, like gluten-free sandwich bread, which certainly opened up doors for me to be able to eat a sandwich. That was something I hadn't had in a long time. And yes, Chick-fil-A, I mean, they have gluten-free bread now. If you didn't know that, I could go there and actually eat something. And it was really, really nice. So, and yes, I also allowed myself gluten and dairy, and no, they didn't flare up candida or anything like that. And lo and behold, by doing this, not only did I clearly let myself have more nutrients from a larger variety of sources, which is very healthy for you, my hair stopped falling out. My skin cleared up. I had all this acne on my arms. My periods started coming like clockwork, and they have been for about 6 months now. No pain. They come right on time. They're not super heavy. It's amazing. So the thing is, I still believe in feeding my body the best and most nutritious, healthy things, but I think I've redefined healthy, and I've made friends with food. I'm no longer afraid of it causing a health problem. So this means I still eat mostly gluten and dairy free, still mostly low sugar, because I know that my body feels the best when I do that. When Daniel and I walk down to our local taqueria and have, tacos, I know that if I get chips and guacamole, I'm not going to feel good later. And it's not because of the guacamole, it's because of the chips. I just don't agree well with corn for whatever reason. It just doesn't get along with my body. But I don't deprive myself, and I no longer have rules. Because if we have rules, they're always going to be broken. We're always going to feel guilty. And it may not be about fighting candida or fighting cancer for you. It might be about losing weight or trying to gain weight, which has always been an issue for me. And when I started listening to my intuition, I finally started putting on some weight. And that's a huge part of me getting more energy and more regular periods, which is awesome. So when we don't have rules, it means the rules can't be broken. And it means we can't have fear or guilt for breaking rules because there weren't rules to start with. So the lesson here is that when we take away all of the restriction and all of the dieting and we make food our friends, we don't have to be afraid of food anymore. We don't have to blame it. We can just own it and say, you know what? My body doesn't agree with corn. It's not the corn's fault. It's something in my body that doesn't agree with the corn. And that's okay. That's just the truth. And, I truly believe that really robust, profound nutrition and supplementation, if that's important for you, are absolutely vital to staying healthy. But the truth is, like I said, you cannot diet and supplement away a negative mindset or a stressed out lifestyle. There's no amount of nutrition that can cover up that. And that's particularly if the stressed out mindset and the fear is around food. Sometimes we'd rather rely on something external like food to be the cause of our health problems or the savior of our health problems. But maybe just working on reducing stress and reducing fear will go a really long way for you. Because the truth is that physiologically, the effects of stress and negativity on our body far outweigh any benefit we can gain from our diet. The diet's important, but it's not the only thing. So taking the steps to drop that fear, judgment, and blaming and shaming around food will help us get there. So that may be the part where you're still having trouble. Maybe you're trying to shed some pounds. Maybe you're trying to improve your body image. Maybe you want to feel more confident in your body. Maybe you want to get rid of candida or cancer or something like that. And maybe dropping the stress and the fear around what you eat or the glorification of food for health is going to be a really big step for you. And, I know that is the truth because I probably talk to no less than 10 girls, teenagers or women a week who say, gosh, who really get down, we get deep and we realize how much fear they have around food too. And when I coach them on how to let go of that stranglehold around food, they really see a massive shift in their health. They might still, again, have certain diet choices and preferences that might appear restrictive, but they come from a different place. They come from an empowered place rather than a place of fear. So I wrote about this a lot more in this week's blog, which I'll post in the comments of this post. And I'll also be interviewing a total expert on this next week in next week's Friday Facebook Live. Her name is Holly Toronto. She's a health coach, and she works with Love Your Body Health Coaching. And she's so beautifully talented when it comes to helping women and men heal fears around food and body image issues. So I'll be talking to her a lot, and it'll be a nice segue from this conversation. So make sure you stay tuned and come visit us again next week. And then also I'll be posting in the comments a link to a webinar I'm doing on Wednesday, October 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where I'll actually be training you on some of these ways to let go of the stress and fear around food, because you really can. It doesn't have to be hard. And it's a free webinar, so just make sure you sign up and reserve your seat for that. So thank you guys so much for watching this video and bearing with me as Facebook and Facebook Live were not working with me today. Sometimes there's always a tech flaw. I mean, not even sometimes, there's always a tech flaw. That didn't even make sense, that sentence. There's always a tech flaw. It got me on Facebook this time. And I did this same video over on Instagram Live, so make sure you go watch it on Instagram Live too. All right, guys, have a great weekend. I challenge you this weekend to find one example where you can drop fear around food and give yourself unconditional permission to listen to your body and what your body's asking you to eat. All right, bye.